Starbreeze has given us some more information in regards to Payday 3 in terms of its narrative and sound, and more particularly if you're interested in the lore. So today's video I'm going to be taking you through all those three things. Let's start with the lore. So 5 years have passed since Payday 2, where they've robbed the White House for pardons. After that, the gang went into retirement, living off the earnings from their heists. Now in Payday 3, some of the people that they've crossed paths with in the past, whether it's to do with Payday 2 or Payday the Heist, people that they've wronged basically, they find out the gang's alive and they kind of have a grudge. They know that the police aren't going to do anything. They found out all that out. And now there's a bit of a conspiracy to have the Payday gang killed. So they've hired assassins, they've frozen all the assets as a precaution, so the Payday gang won't retaliate. And we don't even know if the assassin attempts have succeeded. But we do know that Dallas, Hoxton, Wolf, Chains, and Joy have survived. The gang is then contacted by an old associate of Bane called Shade, and she reaches them before the assassination attempts, gathers them to New York, and promises she will do her best to find out about this conspiracy, who's behind it, and get payback. And as their assets are frozen, they need to start heisting again to get some money. So that's all the motivation and the kind of backstory for Payday 3, which is quite interesting. And I'm also quite interested to see who we get to see next that has survived in the narrative. Talking of the narrative, a few points that they mentioned was Payday 3 has a more serious tone, but still has that kind of Hollywood heist fantasy. Still has the sentiment of a game with a good vibe, but it's made to feel lighthearted, so it can be serious at times, but when something happens, it may seem funny. There's also some thought process behind what they're stealing, how they're stealing, and why. What's the purpose? Could it be feasible in the real world? And it should feel possible that it could be done in real life. That more immersive aspect to the narrative and when we are playing whatever heist it is. And because they are depicted as the best of the best, the game should reflect what master criminals would do. Now, in the main story of Payday 3, you get an introduction cinematic that explains the lead up to the heist you're meant to play. Now, you've also got to consider the conspirators at this point and where the characters are at that time. And then after the heist, you also get another cinematic that explains the aftermath. Basically, we're getting some lore and context with each heist that we do through the story. But also during the heist, there are going to be some more pieces of info throughout, some of them that could reveal some backstory or some foreshadowing or something like that. As for the characters, it's been 5 years. They've matured a bit. That's been mentioned before. But now we've got some bit more detail in that, where they've said that Joy was 23 at the end of Payday 2. And now she's 28, and you can kind of tell that she's matured from what she expresses herself. She doesn't count points as much as she did in Payday 2. As for Dallas, one of the oldest heisters, although Dallas likes heisting, it's kind of been his life, there are pieces of him that would want to stay in retirement. The word that they used was a bit more somber. As for Wolf, Wolf is the exact opposite. He hated retirement, and he is super happy he's back, and someone's trying to kill him, so he's happy that he's back out doing some heisting again. So all the characters kind of have their own sort of motivations and kind of maturity level and what they like and what they don't like based on all sorts of factors, including their personality. The last thing that they mentioned with narrative was they have the opportunity with a live service game with DLC to explore more into all the characters' backstory, as there's a lot the players don't know, and I'm very, very much interested to see what we get to learn about more all the characters to see. Moving on to sound now. So we got an appearance from the GOAT himself. Gustavo was here talking about his music. So generally they're keeping the sound grounded, but they're going for the power fantasy, which for those people that don't know is basically a do what you want fantasy. As for the music was to honor the legacy of Payday 2, which was loved by the community, but also bring something new in. So Gustavo has said that he's brought in some of his influences in, including some forms of electronic and bass music, as well as some rock and metal. And he's trying to mix it together from what they already have from the other games. And the kind of formula that they mentioned was it's 50% Payday the Heist, 20% Payday 2, and 30% of Gustavo. He explained that the music has different states of what's happening in the game. There are 5 different intensities of stealth. It kind of moves into a control state, then anticipation, then assault, a little bit similar to Payday 2, but obviously it has its own personality with it being a new game. It changes depending on what's happening. So it will ramp up when there's a police assault, and then it will slow down when the police regroup, and then it goes into that loop of police assault, ramp up, and then slow down for the regroup. Each song is also worked per heist, so the setting and objectives and tempo of the heist determines how the music will play. So this was the kind of thought process behind the creation of the music. So some heists will have higher or slower tempos dependent on the objectives in the heist. If it's a more higher paced heist, it will have a higher tempo. They have put an emphasis on building the world. So if you do explore the heist, you'll find different sounds throughout that should have that more immersive experience. And these sounds kind of aid you in your experience, like where enemies are, teammates are, because how they explained it was, well, you can hear in 360, but you can only see in 90 degrees approximately. As for voice actors, Dallas Hoxton changed voice actors return. There's a new voice actor for Wolf, as we've previously already know. And they also mentioned about the small talk system with NPCs, which is randomly picked conversations with other NPCs, making a more immersive experience and makes the world feel alive. And that is everything we learnt from the latest Dev Diary, focusing on narrative and sound. And I love the fact that we got some lore, so we actually know where we are in the entirety of the Payday timeline. Pretty awesome. And that is going to do it for today. I do hope you've enjoyed it and found it helpful. If you have and like to see more content like this, make sure you're subscribed. I'd like to know if you're excited for Payday 2. It's coming out next week. I'm excited to play it, and I hope you guys are too. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.